it's Maria. Today we're going to talk a little bit about ADHD and language. I have a lot of parents who come into my office and they're not quite sure why they're here getting a speech and language test. Their chief concern is not about communication, it's not about speech and language, it's actually about hyperactivity, it's about attention deficit. A lot of these kids are having a hard time academically at school. Sometimes they're having a hard time behaviorally at school or home, for that matter. So why do we test for language? Basically, we want to know if their issue with attention, memory, recall is affecting their learning overall, their ability to process information, their ability to follow directions, answer questions, remember things. It's basically the areas that I'm going to focus on while I'm testing them. So if I can't attend to something, I can't remember it. If I can't remember it, I can't learn it. Basically, the breakdown starts with attention. If I sit there and talk to a child, read something to them, good God. If I read something to a child, teach it to them, say it over and over and over again, unless that child is actually paying attention to what I'm saying to them, they're not going to remember any of it. If they don't remember any of it, they're not going to be able to actually process the information and do anything with it. Because what's the point? If it didn't go in, it's not going to stay in. There's a big difference between my ADHD kids and my ADD kids, especially in a test-taking situation. My ADHD kids, that's my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder kids, are usually bouncing off the walls. We all know those kids. I have one of those in my own house. They have a really hard time sitting. They have a very hard time completing an activity. But a lot of times, if they're actually doing something physical, they can still pay attention. So I've had kids pace my room back and forth and ace my test. I've had them sit there and draw pictures, make spitballs, stand on their head. I'm not kidding about that one. And they still listen to everything I say and are able to answer my questions. They needed to be distracted in order to still pay attention. I've had the opposite as well. I've had my ADD kids. These are just attention deficit kids. They don't have the hyperactivity component, who have sat there patiently, quietly, lovely, and it appears that they're listening to everything I say to them until I'm done talking and they go, huh? What? Not, I'm sorry I didn't hear that, or can you repeat it? Like literally it didn't even go in. So it can be one or the other. You can have your kids, those are the two extremes. You can have your kids who are able to pay attention to something and they don't look like it, and you have your kids who look like they're perfectly attentive and they're not getting any of this information. Again, these are the two extremes. A lot of our kids kind of fall in the crack in the middle where we don't realize what's going on with them. So what we're looking at in a speech and language evaluation is their ability to pay attention to information, their ability to recall information, their ability to follow directions. The way we test for that is usually activities like following directions. I'll give them a 1-step direction. Usually not a problem. I'll give them a 2 to 3-step direction that involves words like before, after, while, within the 2 to 3-step situation. That's where my breakdowns tend to occur. A lot of kids either didn't hear the first or second part, or they are impulsive children, so they tend to answer the question before I've finished asking the question. Even if I repeat it, they're still going to get it wrong, because the problem wasn't in their listening. The problem was in the fact that they want to get it done as fast as possible and they're not taking the time to process what's actually being said. We do things like paragraph recall. We'll read a paragraph to the child and they have to be able to remember certain facts about the paragraph. Again, I've had kids do this while pacing the room and they did great. I've had kids do this while looking at me intently and they failed it. I never know. I never know what it's going to be. Some kids interrupt me halfway through. Some kids look like they're about to fall asleep at my table. And I never know, because sometimes the one who looks like he's falling asleep actually aces the test, and the one who looks fantastic didn't get a word of it. I never know with that. That's why I want to go ahead and complete an entire test before I'm able to tell the parents what's going on in my section. I want to know what their difficulty with attention is doing to them, how it's affecting their ability to learn, to process information, to recall what's being said to them, and to be able to follow directions. That's basically what we're looking at when we look at a speech and language test with a child who has ADHD. I'm not looking at their attention. I know they have an issue with attention. I'm looking to see how their attention is affecting them. Can they take that difficulty with attention and still roll with it and complete a test? Or is that issue of attention affecting them to the point where they can't complete simple tasks? Usually when I'm testing a child, I'm in a very basic, simple room with nothing on my walls, no distractions, no other people. So if they're having a hard time in my room with nothing to look at, nothing going on auditorily, then yeah, they have a significant issue at school where there's tons of things to look at, tons of things going on, lots of moving parts involved. So usually they're gonna need some sort of therapy, whether it's speech therapy, whether it's counseling. A lot of psychologists will work on something called executive functioning. So that's our memory, our problem solving, our impulsivity, our reasoning, things like that fall into the categories of problem solving. So you can go to psychological therapy, executive functioning, not problem solving. You can go to counseling, you can go to speech therapy. A lot of my kiddos with ADHD benefit from occupational therapy because it helps them sort of bring in a lot of the issues that are sort of outside of themselves. It helps them center themselves. So any kind of therapy is usually good for them, but look for it first. Get them tested and see if they're having a breakdown. They could be having a terrible time at school behaviorally and have no problems at all with language comprehension. Or they could be actually doing very well, and you sit down and have a test with them and realize that there are a lot of breakdowns going on that we need to address now before they get worse later on within their school. If you have any questions or concern in this area, I very briefly glossed over the main points of it. So if there's any other questions that you have, let me know. If you have any comments, if you want me to dig a little deeper into ADHD, that's not a problem. Just let me know what you think. All right, thank you. Bye.